welcome to episode 1 of Tangled Talk with Team Awesome. My name is Bex. You might know me better on Tumblr as Tangled BEA. I am the one who runs that relatively popular Tangled blog that I started up ever since the series began.
I'm Kelsey Fitzherbert. I've been on Tumblr for 7 years. Usually people know me as the one who's always screaming. I'm usually talking in all caps. I've been around here for a long time. I took a break for a little bit, but then I came back when the series was announced, and now I'm here.
And I'm Ellie, better known as Forever Tangled Up. I started the Tangled Fandom Resurrection back in 2014. I've also been on Tumblr for 7 years, and it's been a ride. It's been a fun times.
Okay, so we three crazy people decided that we were going to get together and start doing a podcast about Tangled because, I mean, what else are the three of us going to talk about besides Tangled? We do it all the time anyway. We might as well let other people hear our thoughts if they so choose. And with the start of season 2, we figured now was the perfect time to get this idea off the ground. So yeah, that's what you're going to be hearing with Tangled Talk with Team Awesome, is that we are literally talking about the show, and probably we will occasionally meander off into the movie because you can't talk about the series without ever talking about the movie. They're the same thing. I mean, what do you want? So we'd actually like to start off this podcast with a recap of season 1, and it's not like we're going to go episode by episode, so don't expect to get bored, hopefully. But
you can't get bored talking about Tangled.
Well, true. You do bring a valid point.
But we can't make this podcast like 8 hours long.
Yeah, that's a good point. We do need to keep it a normal length. Oh, that's another thing you all might need to be aware that none of us have ever done a podcast before, so this is semi-experimental. We're going to be working out tweaks as we go. We don't know what length we expect each episode to be. They're probably not going to be a specifically consistent length, just however long it takes is however long it takes. But yeah, so if we're going to start with the recap of season 1, we'll start with the fact that it takes place 6 months. It begins 6 months after the movie ends, so you have a nice 6-month gap. And I mean, I've actually found out a lot of people don't know Tangled Before Ever After. They're like, oh, well, there's this series and she's got blonde hair, but do they bother to explain how she got blonde hair? And
why does she have blonde hair? Why does she have blonde hair? I remember when it came out, that's all people talked about. Don't worry about it.
Beforehand, they were just like, but why is the blonde hair there? And I'm like, they'll explain it, guys.
I mean, I have to admit, when we got the first promo images and she had blonde hair, I was like, why?
You're like, why?
Agreed.
Because I mean, I'm like, don't just make the clock reverse, haha, and give her back blonde hair when her brunette hair is so significant. And I know that a lot of people's issue is that because her brown hair is so significant, they want to know that there's a valid reason for her to have blonde hair other than marketing.
And then the reason, when you say it outright, it's like, oh yeah, there's these rocks. And they're like, what does that have to do with hair? Like, hold on, there's a story. We just don't know it yet.
Wait. Just hold on.
Yeah, so back
we'll
in the early days, the very first person that I reached out to was actually Steven Sandoval, who he worked on all of season 1. He probably has a lot of stuff to do with season 2 and maybe even some of season 3, but I know that he's now moved on to that new cartoon show, The Owl House. So Steven's working on that now, but he was the first crew member that I saw on Tumblr. So I reached out to him first, and I'm like, just chatting with him in Messenger, and I was like, so you know that everybody's asking about the blonde hair, right? And he goes, well, I mean, and he explained, he's like, well, I can't tell you because of plot reasons, but I mean, there is a reason. It's not like we forgot that she had brown hair. And so as soon as I heard that, I was like, okay, I'm on board. You guys know what you're doing.
Yeah, they didn't just do it for marketable reasons. They had a reason for it, and that's fine. I'm good.
Exactly.
And I think, Becky, after you talked to Steven, you immediately texted me and you were like, there's a reason! I was like, oh, thank God. Okay, I can calm down now.
I mean, as soon as I found out, I was like, okay, I'm completely on board with this. Now that I know that my only issue is taken care of, I'm completely on board with the show.
Yep.
It was funny because oh, go ahead.
No, okay, go ahead. You were saying.
It was funny because at the beginning I came back on. I want to say it was like a year before the series came out, and I was like, oh God, they're gonna ruin this. I'm like, they're gonna mess it up. This is so important to me. They're gonna mess it up. And I remember sending you an ask, and I was like, God, I'm just really nervous. And you said this big long thing, and then I think Kate said something too, and that post it got popular, and now looking back, I'm like, it's fine. I trust it all. I don't believe any of this anymore. I'm so sorry. I was young and naive. I'm sorry.
Yeah, see, and that was exactly it, is that when I started talking to various crew members, which, believe it or not, that took a lot of courage on my part. I'm like, okay, there's these people working on this show, and, like, they're on Tumblr, and, like, I'm going to just try talking to them, and it's scary, but I'm going to try it, and which is ridiculous, because now we all know how nice they all are, so it's, like, ridiculous that I was ever scared to talk to any of them. So I reached out to Kate after Steven, and I remember her mentioning that she had, she says, oh yeah, like, we are all aware of your blog, and we talk about you around the office. And I'm like, what? Are you freaking kidding me?
You're like, don't tell me that.
So, but that was basically the point at which I started to really I'm like, you know what? I'm going to choose to blindly trust you guys, because everybody I'm talking to was like, no, we're all really big fans of the movie, and we want to do it proud, and we want to do the fans proud. And so we're not going to screw this up. And as soon as I got that reassurance, I was like, oh, well then, hell yeah, I'm on board, and I'm going to trust you guys.
Yeah.
You know? And so then I remember all of the asks I got being like, well, blonde hair, and I'm so scared, and blah, blah. I'm like, no, I blindly trust them. I mean, I have to admit it's blind, but, you know, they know what they're doing. So, and now we know how well they know what they're doing.
I mean, we've seen Disney do some stuff for money and money grabs and making sequels to things that probably shouldn't have a sequel. And I think that's where my fear came out of it. I was like, you know, this has been so important to me and who I am for so long. And I'm like, now I have to just blindly let these people take these characters and do something new with them. And it was scary, but...
And honestly, it did not help that Roy Conley had previously said that they weren't going to do any more with Tangled, and that they couldn't do a sequel because they couldn't figure out a plot. And they're like, oh, well, we're going to make a series about it. And we're like, but Roy Conley couldn't figure out a plot because he said no more Tangled. So what the heck is going on here? And honestly, I assumed it was going to be a bunch of really cute day-in-the-life nonsense. Kind of like the shorts, actually. You know?
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, I thought we were going to have a series of that very much felt like the shorts, which are freaking hysterical. I know that you both saw Nightbite.
Oh my gosh.
That was awesome.
I was, like, at work trying not to bust out laughing so that people wouldn't ask me what was so funny, because they wouldn't get it, you know?
They're like, what are you doing? Like, it's hilarious, I promise.
Yeah, seriously. So I mean, that's what I was expecting when I first heard about this short, and that was part of why the hair worried me, because I'm like, if the hair is plot driven, then that means you have a plot, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so then I guess we're just gonna have to let it happen. And so then that took us up to our over a year of waiting before we actually got Tangled Forever After.
Oh my gosh. We're such a patient fandom.
We really are.
Like,
we whine. We whine a lot, but we are actually very patient.
Yeah, I mean, it's always funny to me when you do this, Kelsey, and it always makes me laugh, because I'm like, girl, we went through 5 years.
I can't wait anymore, okay? It's hard enough to wait a week.
I know. It's understandable. We all want the good stuff. But it's always funny when people are like, it's taking forever. And I'm like,
I'm like, it's been 3 weeks.
I waited 5 years between Tangled Ever After for this.
And honestly, one of the things that Ellie and I noticed, because we wrote the crew this gushing 4-page fan letter, that we sent them.
Nerds.
When we sent them the Tangled Fandom Resurrection buttons, we also wrote them this letter, you know, explaining how much this means to us and how much the waiting was. And, like, we actually started getting a whole bunch of new Tangled news all at the same time. Because we had hit a fandom low because they had, Disneyland, which, as most people know, is my home park, at Disneyland where they have the Tangled show, they had taken out the Tangled show for a Frozen show, which would have been fine, except they then took Eugene away from the meet and greets. And so I was like,
oh man.
I found that out on Valentine's Day.
That was so bad.
I went to Disneyland with another single friend of mine right after my breakup, and I was like, you know what'll make my breakup better? I'm gonna go see my favorite couple in the world on Valentine's Day. And they're like, well, Rapunzel's not here today, and Flynn's not here ever anymore. And I'm like, what?
Yeah,
I was so upset. Oh my gosh. Like, yeah. I very rarely post things while I'm at Disneyland because my phone battery just, I mean, at the time, Disneyland did not have Wi-Fi, and so it just drained my battery to try to post anything. And so, but I was like, that could not wait. I was like, oh my God, I have the worst news, guys.
Oh, I couldn't remember if I ever told you, Becky, but I think I sent an email to them to get them about, I was like, you can't take Eugene away. You cannot. No. You have effectively ruined all of my future Disneyland trips by taking him away.
Didn't you get a phone call on that? They called you back?
They called me. And they were like, we got your email. We're glad you're so passionate, and we will pass this on to, the character department. And I was like, Thanks. You.
Yeah, no, I actually did the same thing. Is that while I was there the same day, I went to City Hall and I wrote them a physical, comment, because I don't want to call it a complaint because it's the same card whether it's a compliment or a complaint. But I went and I wrote a physical comment card being like, you have to bring him back. You don't understand, And so they respond a little bit better to the actual physical cards because then they know for a fact you were in the park. But after that, I also sent them an email, and I also got a phone call back.
Yeah.
And I was all like, okay, guys, this campaign is going to work if everybody freaking emails them and answers your phone when they call you back, you know? So then I found out that he was at the parks again. And not long after that, the Cruise musical was announced. And 2 weeks later, the series was announced. And all of a sudden, it was like, oh my God, Tangled is not dead. This is amazing,
I wonder if when he got taken out of those parks, to go back to that, that's when it happened in Disneyland, or Disney World, sorry. And that's my home park. And we were like 3 months away from our trip. And I was like, oh my God, I get to meet them. I was so excited. And then I read online that they took him out. And I was like, I was young, but I was so sad. I went up to my dad. I was like, I can't do the dishes today, Dad. I'm so emotional. And so he was like, okay. And so
that's amazing.
I remember sending him an email, and I was like, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm like an adult. So this is kind of bad, but I pretended to be like an angry mom. And I was like, my kid is really upset. She was looking forward to that. They sent me an autographed picture of the two of them. And I was like, heck yeah. But we never got him back except for special events. So
yeah.
Yeah. And then, I mean, well, at least you have him in a parade.
Yeah, that's
true. We don't have that. But we do have Mickey in the Magical Map, and he's in that. And he sings in that, so that's pretty
cool.
And
he's in Fantasmic.
And he's in Fantasmic now. See, I keep forgetting that. Not that I actually ever forget that, but Fantasmic was the same for so long, and it's only been different for a year. So I keep forgetting that he's in Fantasmic now. They're in Fantasmic now. Let's not pretend it's all about Eugene, even though it's all about Eugene.
It's all about
Eugene. But yeah, so that was actually when, we started getting, that was when the Tangled Fandom Resurrection, started seeing its success, was when they all of a sudden started bringing all this stuff back. And so, yeah, I started talking to various crew members before the series started, and it just kind of built from there, and then the series did start, which was freaking amazing. Dude, okay.
I remember the day like it was yesterday. I really do.
I remember getting the book of Tangled Before Ever After, which came out, 2 weeks before the movie actually did?
I thought it was.
Was it a little bit later?
I thought it was a month.
Yeah, we had some time.
You're right, because it came out on Valentine's Day. Another thing that happened on Valentine's Day. It came out on Valentine's Day. But I remember I've still got a photo that I posted to, I think, both Facebook and Instagram of me holding the book, tears streaming down my face because I just finished reading it. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, my babies are back. And how can Frederick treat her that way? Doesn't he know he's being just like Gothel? Oh my God. I mean, I was like, and then it's like, and then when I went and saw the movie, despite knowing what the plot was going to be like, it blew me away regardless.
Oh,
because that's when you have all the visuals and that's when you have all the acting. And it's like, I know that...
You see Eugene's sad puppy face.
She
rejected proposal.
Actual kicked puppy Eugene.
Oh man.
But like, I mean, I know that Kate especially has vocalized disappointment when we read the books before we see a movie.
I know.
So I now try not to. I'm like,
here was my reasoning for that book, and I was like, you know, I couldn't even open it. Like, I'm staring at it, and Neil's looking at me, and he's like, "Are you gonna read it?" I'm like, "Dude, like this is what's next." I'm like, "This is such a big step for me that I like couldn't wait for the thing to come out. I couldn't."
I was going to, but honestly, a lot of the time I just use the excuse of I run a fan blog and I can't afford to be behind, you know, and so I do my best to not give spoilers unless people specifically ask for them, and then I tag spoilers for 5,000 years afterwards. Like, I'm going to keep tagging Beyond the Corona Walls with spoilers until Sunday, and then I'll stop with
I said I'm done on Sunday.
But I'll pick up with the Return of Quaid. So, but yeah, so, I mean, we're like, I think we're never going to get to the actual season 1 recap, or if we do, it's going to be very short because we're so busy talking about the impact that this show has had on us just by existing. You know, it's just, it's like we crazy Tangled fans who have been like clinging to this. I mean, and the three of us are really good examples of how this show has carried us through so many hard times. And this movie, well, the movie for starters carried us through hard times, and it's like the show continues to carry me through hard times. And it's like
adult hard times for us because
well,
we're little.
Fair, I've been an adult the entire time Tangled has existed, but I was 30 when the movie came out. Okay, so
and I was 13.
Oh man,
but like, but that just goes to show, like, but being an adult Tangled fan just means that my entire living room is Tangled. So it's like, it's great, you know. It's absolutely smashing. I love it. But yeah, so like and I know that it's meant so much to so many people, and there are reasons why so many people are clinging to it and why it still speaks to this audience, you know? I mean, and season 2 has just started, and you still get the people who haven't watched season 1, but like every time I see somebody ask someone else in the fandom about the series and asking about the hair and stuff, and all they do is just encourage them, just watch the show. It is so good. Just watch the show. I have a friend who finally watched it 3 days before season 2 started because she wasn't really into any of the previews she saw, but when she saw the trailer for Beyond the Corona Walls, when she saw the stallion stuff, she went, oh my God, that's my bag. I have to catch up on this show. And so she did. In 2 days while she was at work, when work was slow, she watched, and she just watched, and she caught up. And so then she's now completely caught up, and she's like, no, this is great. I can't believe how good this is. And I'm like, yeah. Awesome. And she's extremely discerning. Like, I wouldn't call her elitist in the slightest bit, but she's the same level that I am. I mean, that she does have very particular taste about things, and it's just like, not any little thing will float her boat. And so when she finally sat down and watched it and loved it, I was like, I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so, you know?
Well, I try to do that every post I see of people, because we all have to admit that Varian has brought in so many fans. And every time I see,
love it, you know?
Every time I see somebody that's like, man, I don't watch this show, but I really like Varian, I'm like, do it. I'm like, watch it.
Watch it for Varian.
Get into it.
Know? Watch the show.
Watch it for Varian. You'll get sucked in. We promise. It's really, really good. I mean, and so this friend of mine who just watched it, her reaction was, I cannot believe how good this is. And I'm like, right? Just, it's like, you don't expect that we got so, whatever the opposite of spoiled is, on the 90s spin-off cartoons. You know,
Yeah.
and it's like everybody says that this is the best thing since Aladdin. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry, this is better than Aladdin.
Yeah.
Because Aladdin was extremely episodic.
Yeah.
Like, it did not have an overlying plot. You had a couple common threads that popped up every now and then. You had a villain that you would see, like, for several episodes. You had, like, Mosenrath and Mirage and Sadiq and all them. And just, like, but it wasn't a complete combined plot the way that Tangled is. And so this is actually way better than Aladdin. And no offense to Aladdin, which I loved, you know. But it's just, like, I'm so impressed with what Shane and Chris and all of the writers, and I mean, they do such a freaking good job on this show on a regular basis, and it's so consistent.
Well, and they do things that people aren't expecting from something like this, and in a plot like this, and it's awesome.
It really is, and you're absolutely right. There's a lot of, like, tropes that they do the lampshade version on. They just hang it upside down, and you're like, how many people thought Cassandra was going to end up being the villain? Like, they're like, oh, they gave her the villain coloring. She is so obviously going to be the villain, and then she's just not.
Yep.
You know?
And then they took the one person you didn't think. And made them, like, you know.
The cinnamon roll.
The cinnamon roll.
But yeah, and the best part is that I agree with so many people. When you go back and you rewatch, you can see all the clues that they actually dropped all throughout that we didn't catch because we weren't looking for them. Yep. And now that you are looking for them, they're everywhere, and that's so good. That is such good writing. I love that. And I also love how they are continuously, first of all, with the animation, how they bring in not only nuances from the movie, but nuances from the concept art. Just like so many times when Ellie first started making all those adorable icons, it started out with her being like, this Eugene face is from this concept art, and this Eugene face is from that concept art. And it's gone from there, and it just keeps happening, and they just keep having parallel moments to show. And the thing I love about the parallel moments is that shows that these behaviors and these characters are a consistent thing, not a momentary thing just for the scene.
Well, and that's really cool to people like us who, like, know that kind of stuff, and we're watching it and we see that, and we're like, dude, that's from, like, the movie. That's awesome.
And, like, we are so excited for Vigor the Visionary because that's from a deleted scene from the movie.
Yes, exactly.
So
and so, like, I'm so excited about that. And the fact that Ricky has wrote that episode, I'm like, oh my god, it's going to be so good. If Ricky wrote it, it's going to be so good.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I guess we should literally try to summarize the first season at this point, since this is take 3 on attempting to summarize the first season. So we have, you start with Rapunzel and Eugene, and they're going out to this Corona wall, which is when we are introduced to this wall. And we find out that Frederick has this barrier that basically he has put Rapunzel in a much larger tower. And that is so significant because it's a running theme throughout the entire first season, is that she is now trapped in another tower. And it's like, what is the point of being released if you're just going to get trapped again?
Yeah, exactly.
But at the same time, what freedom she does have is causing her to learn about society and learn about being a princess and learn about responsibilities, which she's never had to do, and learn how to navigate other people's personalities, which is, I'm really appreciating them giving her this opportunity to explore that, because I mean, every time she doesn't understand a turn of phrase because she's never heard it before, like when Eugene's like, well, and life gives you lemons, and she's like, finish that thought, because she's never heard that phrase before, or when she's inventing things that have already been invented, because she can't possibly know everything that's been invented so far. So, I mean, I love that they are continuing her naivete, or just inexperience in that regard. That it is definitely, I mean, and I anticipate seeing more of this in season 2, because she's now going to be exposed to people who don't automatically love her because she's no longer the princess of their realm.
And we've already seen that in the first episode, because she's like, the world's going to be great. And then she's like, oh, Never mind.
She almost loses her man, like, the first week out. Like, she's like, uh-oh.
Oh, man.
The first woman I come across, and, like, she takes my man. But, yeah, so all of season 1 is based upon Rapunzel's development with the world, and then, of course, the whole mysterious rock thing.
Mm-hmm.
And as Chris pointed out, which honestly, sometimes I feel so blind when he points out something and I'm like, it's so obvious, why didn't I see that?
Yeah.
But through most of season 1, all of the spikes were pointing towards the castle because they were supposed to be reflecting Frederick's desires and personality. Not that they were, like, taking cues from him specifically, but it was a visual representation within the show of Frederick trying to keep Rapunzel in. And then as soon as she took hold of her own destiny, she was able to control them, and they let her out.
Yeah.
And
love it.
And so that was so significant. I love that they immediately pounced on this whole Eugene is ready to get married. They've been dating for 6 months at this point. He wants to marry this girl who is, like, changed his life forever.
Mm-hmm.
And while she loves him, I love how during the proposal, she's excited and happy until he mentions staying in this castle for years and years and years and years and years. And then suddenly she realizes it's a trap, you know?
Yeah.
And not that he's trying to trap her, but that settling down in and of itself is a trap. And she needs to avoid that. And so
it feels like another tower to her almost.
Yeah.
Even though it isn't, but
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I absolutely loved about that is that I know the three of us were all screaming from the point, just talk to him, explain your feelings, talk to the man, tell him how you're feeling. I cannot say the number of times I've answered asks where people were like, what do you wish would become of Eugenia Rapunzel? I'm like, I want her to talk to him.
And then we got a song where she talks about why didn't she talk to him?
That she didn't talk to him, you know? And so it's like, so I love that they acknowledge that this was a very deliberate move on their part, her not talking to him for the entire season or not expressing her feelings properly for the entire season, that was a running theme and it was absolutely deliberate. And that's one of the things is that everything they do is deliberate. I know that Chris has said that everything they do is for a reason.
Yep.
And that can be something as small as the reason why they chose to portray this background the way they chose to portray it is because it reminded them of something specific. Like in Rapunzel's Enemy, I know that Rapunzel seeing the window of the candy shop was drawn from Chris's experience at Disneyland, going down Main Street, walking by the Crystal Arcade, where they had the big old crystal castle right in the window, and you're just filled with a sense of, ooh, pretty, shiny, pretty. And so they conveyed that through Rapunzel looking at these beautiful sugar sculptures. And man,
I'm sure that's how she, like, sees the world. Like, that's how she sees things. Even, like, the dullest things, that's how she sees them. And oh, I love it.
I will digress or possibly continue on and talk about that episode specifically, that I gave it grief for the longest time. By grief, I simply mean that it was like my lowest ranking episode for the longest time. Yeah. And the fact of the matter is, now that we have reached the end of season 1, I can look back on Rapunzel's Enemy and say, no, that actually has one of the best lessons in the show is right off the bat. Yeah. Because the number of times I have reminded myself as an adult that I don't have to be friends with everyone and everyone doesn't have to be friends with me. Yep. It's like, that is such a valuable lesson. And they are constantly teaching us valuable lessons like that. And it's amazing how they are just as effective for adults as they are for kids, but it's very important to teach these kids that also. Yeah. So, and just like, trying to find words.
I think my favorite thing about season 1 is that it started out with, it was heavy plot, and then we got What the Hair, and it was heavy plot. And I think the reason that a lot of us didn't like Rapunzel's Enemy is because we were like, okay, heavy plot, and there was nothing. And we're like, so that's what it's going to be.
Light. It was like really light and frivolous compared to the movie and What the Hair.
And then they followed... Then they followed Rapunzel's Enemy up with Fitzherbert P.I.
And we were good.
Oh my god! I don't care about plot. I just care about Eugene in that guard uniform. and running around and getting all sweaty.
Yup.
Because yeah.
But like I like
Yeah.
how we had those episodes and it was almost like, I mean, we called them filler episodes. We would have a little bit of plot here and there, but not a lot. And then we all were like, and then Queen for a Day happened. And we're like, okay, so this is going to be like a big filler, and she's going to go in the snow, and it's going to be fun. And then they knocked us all on the ground with the feels. And
Yep.
And talk about, like, let's keep putting people that we know will make it into mortal peril.
Yeah, right?
Man.
Here's the thing I love about that, is that it causes the viewer to not be afraid for the character, but to empathize with what the other characters are feeling.
Yep.
Yeah. Because it's like, we all know Pascal's not going to die in that machine.
No matter
Rapunzel
how much
is so sad.
Yeah.
That, like, it breaks your heart. Because it's like, that poor girl, she thinks she just sent her best friend to his death.
Yeah.
You know? And she thinks she did that while she's also carrying the burden of potentially having sent her boyfriend to his death.
Yeah.
And so, and he was out to save her parents who might be dead. And so Rapunzel is sitting here, and she's basically thinking that everyone she loves is dying, you know? And it's just like, and you feel it so hard. And
which
and
is
like,
so good because we know that they're gonna be okay, but we're looking at this and we're like, oh my god, like, are they gonna be okay? Like, they're doing such a good job that we're even doubting ourselves, and we know that they're gonna be okay. Like,
watching the newest episode, I had to keep reminding myself that they get married in the end, because I'm like, oh god,
I'm not over it. I'm not over it.
They're not gonna get married.
Yeah, I mean,
if they get married, it's all good. We're all fine.
It's fine. We're good. 43 minutes of pain, but we're good.
Yep.
We're fine.
Yeah.
God, that was beautiful. But I mean, but honestly, that's one of the things that I love about this show is that because we have this foregone conclusion, they can throw whatever they want at us because, like, bring me the angst because I know we're getting a happy ending. And so let me feel the pain because this is going to be so sweet in the end. And God, that was so, so good. I mean, that episode, holy cow. You're at the point where you're like, oh, nothing will top this, nothing will top that until season 2 starts.
Yep.
Dang, man.
We'll talk more about it when we get to it. We gotta focus on season 1.
Yes, when we get to it. Okay, so, so let's start with, let's pick up Varian, because one of the things I like we were saying before, how you don't realize where he's going until you rewatch it, and then you see all of the little clues here and there. And one of the really important clues, which probably should have told us something, is that he only appears in episodes that have anything to do with the plot, with the overall plot. So of course, what the hair, they're going to him to find out about her hair, and then the spikes are, and then we find out the significance of the power of her hair, just that we can't figure out the significance of the power of her hair yet. And then when he shows up again in Great Expectations, sure, that was all the great Varian heavy episode, but at the end of it brings the spikes back in for the first time since the movie. Because I remember as we're going along watching the series, like, you know what, honestly, this is all great and I really love it, but I know there's a bigger plot, so where's the bigger plot? When are we gonna
it's
get
like, give us something. And
I remember everybody was like, no, this is great and I love it, but when are we getting back to the plot? You know? And so when wrong episode, when Great Expectations came out and we finally got that sliver of plot at the end, that really should have been significant to us more than it was, because Varian's only involved when there's plot.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and we're all like, that's it. Because I remember reading the book, and I was like, that's it? That's all the plot we're getting? I was like, that's it? But now we're looking back, we're like, that was it. Like, that was it.
That was it.
That was the plot. Oh my gosh.
I feel bamboozled by this show sometimes, I swear.
It's very true.
And then, going back to Queen for a Day, like you said, we already talked about Rapunzel emotions, but I mean, and it's not like I don't see where the huge Varian fans are coming from, because sincerely, I do. This poor kid is lost. He has no family. He's like,
He's helpless. He doesn't know what to do. Like, it's...
Yeah. The kingdom, like, has turned their backs on him because they think he's dangerous. Mm-hmm. His own village they already were holding him at arm's length, and the only thing that made them give him the time of day was Kieran, because he was the leader of the village.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, the leader's son, he's kind of weird, but you kind of got to be nice to him because he's the leader's son.
Yeah.
But, like, and after Kieran, stopped coming out of his house, because you gotta wonder how much the villagers showed up every now and then to be like, hey, can we talk to Kieran? And Varen's be like, he's busy, slam the door in their face.
Well, because I feel like if they would have visited and a bunch of them would have saw him, that they would have gone to Fred and been like, dude, we've got this huge problem. Somebody's got to help us. But, like, they didn't, so...
So you get the impression that the villagers ignored Varian entirely, which caused them to ignore or be ignorant of the problem. Mm-hmm. And Varian asking them for help was probably pointless, because between them already being suspicious of him, piled on top of the accusations that he was actively dangerous and trying to hurt the princess, so the kid he's 14 and he's on his own, and that is a legitimate problem. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I mean, I do feel for the kid. It's not a good situation to be in. He handled it horrifically. Yeah. But I also do not expect him to be thinking logically. And that's actually one thing I love about him as a character, is that he's this mad scientist who is all heart. Like, you get so many mad scientist characters who are nothing but clinical and so intellectual that they, like, don't even use contractions. Mm-hmm. And then you've got Varian, who, like, is sobbing at the feet of his father trapped in amber, and singing songs about getting revenge on people. And I remember watching Queen for a Day for the first time when it got to the end of the reprise. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, oh, damn.
We were like, oh, my God.
Uh-oh. Oh, no. I was with you until we got to They Will Pay.
Well, and then the credits had that music, and, like, it wasn't the happy music anymore, and you're just sitting there staring. You're like, oh, my God.
In disbelief, like, what just happened?
And then what's going to happen is the other thought. Like, what's happening next? Where do we go from here?
It's not my favorite episode, but I will say that Queen for a Day is on a whole other level compared to everything we've seen so far. Just everything together works so good, and I love it.
Yep.
Absolutely. And with that, I remember thinking about the specific line, everyone who stands or has stood in my path is going to pay. I'm like, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
But one of the things I've always noted is that Kieran should be on that list. Mm-hmm. Because Kieran was constantly just frustratedly trying to get Varian to leave the rocks alone, and Varian wouldn't do it, and now we know why. Yeah. But, like, I'm like, I want to see your revenge list, kid, because it's like
his hit list.
I'm positive that Rapunzel's at the top of that list, but I really want to see who all was on that list, and I'd like to hear your reasoning behind it,
Yeah.
But I do sympathize with Varian a lot, and that's actually what makes him so intriguing as a character, is that he is complex and he's a gray villain, and unlike so many other gray villains, you actually get to see him become the villain, starting from the good place, going into villainy. And honestly, I hope for redemption, and I really do.
Me too.
Because I want to see him go back and be happy, and I want to see him take what he has learned, and I'd love to see what he's going to learn in season 2. I'm really curious where season 2 is going to take us, because when people have asked me if I thought he could be redeemed, I'm like, well, he can be redeemed, but it's literally on him. Does he want to be redeemed?
Yep, exactly.
Is he willing to take the help, do what he's got to do in order for that redemption arc to start? Or is he going to take the other path and go down into darker villainy? Or is he going to go into darker villainy and then rebound into heroics?
Well, I can do that too. I'm good with whatever, honestly.
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, redeeming Varian would be great, and worse villain Varian would also be great. Like, I'm good with whatever. I mean, and also now that we have an entire season behind us, I'm like, all of that trust that I have in the crew is like tenfold now. I'm like, okay, you guys, like, no, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's just so I'm just, I'm ready to see where they're going to take us. And this is, it's such an exciting ride. It's so freaking cool. And let's see. So next up about the recap, I'm going to go with Cassandra, because one of the points that I was making right away when she's sitting with Rapunzel in Beyond the Corona Walls and being like, look, you know, if there's anything I know about Eugene, it's that he loves you more than anybody else in the whole wide world.
Oh, that was so awesome.
Like,
I was like, yeah.
I was like, team Cass.
New Dream shipper. I love it.
One of us.
And it's like, that was one of the things that I was hoping for. Is they're like, well, don't you think that Cassandra's going to get mad at Eugene? I'm like, or Cassandra's going to be like backing Rapunzel and being like, no, dude, he loves you. You have to trust him.
Yeah.
But then you rewind that all the way to Tangled Before Ever After, where she's like, I don't like you with anyone. She doesn't want to see Eugene happy at all. She doesn't trust him, which she stated multiple times throughout the series. And her relationship with Eugene, it's really interesting to watch it develop. Because I remember in the book for Tangled Before Ever After, it confused me because the narrative said that Cassandra and Eugene were always joking around and they were really good friends. And I'm like, nothing they are doing says that to me. It has to be Rapunzel's point of view. That she's just naively thinks that they must like each other because they both like me and I like both of them. So, and so, like, just watching the development, I mean, honestly, I liked Cassandra from the get-go, but the way that I would phrase it is I like her, but I wouldn't want to hang out with her. She's not the kind of person that I would want in my life on a regular basis.
Cass and I have we've gone through a roller coaster.
Oh, yeah. We have.
Because,
because we are all on the exact same page with Challenge of the Brave.
Oh, man. Don't get me started.
Yep.
Like, Challenge of the Brave, like, every time, like, we are now on episode 1 of season 2, and I watch Challenge of the Brave, and I'm like, I don't forgive you for that. Like,
you're fine, but I don't like you. Not here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still so mad at her for that. I mean, and I can recognize now, looking back, at her as a person and her body language, saying the words "I'm sorry" are not really in her vocabulary. But
except she says it in the new episode. She's
growing. She's growing. She's
growing.
She apologizes to Rapunzel when she's like, "Well, we could just head back to Corona." And
well,
because she was about to kill her.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Is that drawing that back? Is that actually saying "I'm sorry"? Why is my Skype making noise? That's bad of Skype.
I don't hear it. You're fine.
Yeah.
Going back to Challenge of the Brave, that shows more of her character development. Is that at the beginning of the series, she was very, very focused on what she wanted. Like, for somebody who doesn't believe in dreams, she has a dream and she was going to see it through, damn it. You know? And that included stepping on the person she likes the most to get what she wanted.
Yeah.
And she did that multiple times, because first she did that to Rapunzel, who's the person she likes the absolute most, but she also did it to Varian, you know? And she, like, you could tell she kind of gave him a half-hearted, yeah, I promise I'll be your assistant, but you could tell that she didn't really mean it, and that if she could find a way out of it, she would have, and then she found a way out of it, and then she chooses him at the end, and that made a huge difference. And you watch her relationship with Eugene grow, like I was starting with, and so they start out just at each other's throats. And really, the first time you see anything different is in Fitzherbert PI, when she would prefer him to win honorably than to lose dishonorably. She would prefer him to not lose if it meant someone else was cheating to make him lose. And so that goes to show that she's got this real stringent idea of what the rules are. And she's got this moral code.
And she realizes that her dad's being really unfair in that episode.
Absolutely.
And she can see that, she doesn't truly believe that Eugene's trying to change, that he's actually trying, like he's putting in the effort in that episode because he's trying to become a guard, which is the complete opposite of who he has been.
Yeah, precisely. It's so obvious. But so then, then you progress them onto Cassandra v. Eugene, and you have that moment in the cell where they're actually opening up to each other. And this actually kind of peters off on the Eugene conversation, where I've observed that he's actually a very sentimental person. And for this guy who doesn't do backstory, he's now opening up to someone that he doesn't really even consider a friend, Yep. And so that shows his own character growth and how much Rapunzel has changed him in all this time. But then you see Cassandra begin to open up and then close herself off again. And honestly, at first I was like, oh, come on, just talk to the man. But then I'm like, you know what? At the same time, you're allowed to have secrets, woman. I'm not going to be like, you have to be like Rapunzel and tell everybody everything. Not that Rapunzel tells everybody everything.
She doesn't tell the important people everything they should.
Exactly. Like a lot of the important people, she doesn't say everything she should because she is so busy trying to please everyone all the time, And I get the impression that part of the reason why she didn't talk to Eugene about not wanting to marry him is because she didn't want to upset him, and she is very against upsetting people.
Yep.
But also not talking to him upset him. So.
Yeah. It didn't help any. Clearly he got over it because he was like, "Oh, hey, we're all in a great mood. I think I'll propose to her again."
Yeah.
But so then you look at Cassandra and you progress on, and honestly, the real turning point to me was in Under Wraps, because that's when he first referred to her as our Cassie.
Oh, yes.
And that was when he pulled out the whole no one gets to treat Cassandra like that but me. And I'm like, that is the best brother line in the entire universe. That is the kind of things that brothers say. And that goes to show that he now considered her a friend, like legitimately considered her a friend. And honestly, I have been craving this proof that Cassandra feels the same way. And her backing him in Beyond the Coronal Walls is that proof. That's exactly what we need. And so, because you'd had that instance where he defends her. You had in The Quest for Varian, when he defended her, you crossed the line, bub.
Oh, that's my favorite part.
Pulls up his sleeves to go tackle, the captain. Not that we knew it was the captain at the time. Which makes me wonder, what would he have done if he had known it was the captain? Of course, if we'd all known it was the captain, there would have been a lot more shock from the get-go.
Yeah.
Yep.
But then you also have, like, in Painter's Block, how he, like, makes a point of catching her as she's falling, know? So it's like, so we had several instances of Eugene being there for Cassandra, and I just needed to see it back, and now we have, and so now I'm happy.
Yeah.
So that is Cassandra's development, and that's been really important. And like you said, she did actually say the words, "I'm sorry."
Yeah.
And granted, it was a little bit comical and kind of in a panic, but
Definitely.
that goes to show that she is now more receptive to Rapunzel's emotions. And she was so emotionally closed off at the beginning of the series, and she has really opened up a lot over the course of season 1, and that's very, very cool to see.
I love it. I like her now. I'm good. I was just saying last week, I'm like, man, I miss Cass.
I like Cass now. Yeah, I like Cass now. So, now I'd hang out with her. Give her a year of tenderizing with Rapunzel marinade, and then she's perfectly good. But going back to Eugene and the captain's relationship, that's further development, because you start out at Fitzherbert PI, where the captain was being unfair in order to get what he wanted, and he was calling him Fitzherbert, or he's calling him Ryder still, and was cheating to get his own way, and was like reveling in his failure, and so like all this really horribly cruel stuff. And then you have kind of a moment of understanding at the end of the episode when Eugene gets his job as guard trainer. Oh my God, nobody's training the guards. Everybody's going to break out of jail because no one's training the guards and Cassandra's not.
Oh God, you're right.
Max and Cassandra aren't there, and
oh no!
Oh goodness,
we're doomed. Okay,
That's all right.
I digress.
See, this is how we're gonna get Varian out.
Exactly.
It'll be so easy because no one is in charge.
I checked, and there has been 6 or 7 breakouts of individual people since the series began. Wait, no, more than that, because all of Lady Kane's thugs is 5 to 7 people.
Yeah,
so, there has been so many breakouts since the beginning of the series. I'm like, how did you people? No wonder he was able to steal that crown. You people suck.
I mean, as we know from the movie, they send every guard after Eugene being broken out, and he still gets out.
He still gets away. Now, but
do any of the thugs get put in jail because they somehow get out? Or do they just get pardoned later on?
I think it's pardoned. I think
probably, yeah.
Probably pardoned, but yeah. So,
but still, every guard, and he gets out.
Every guard, he gets out anyway.
It's beautiful, really. It's impressive. I love him.
Yeah. So you watch the development between Eugene and the captain, and between Fitzherbert PI and Ready as I'll Ever Be, you can see the vast difference in their relationship. That at this point, Eugene is now concerned about his welfare, that he is now, hey, are you going to be okay? How are you going to, and it's just, it's really cool to watch how everybody's relationships are changing with each other and how they're getting along differently. Well, I think
one of my favorite things, another relationship growth, is to see the way that people change their views on him, on Eugene.
Yeah.
Like how Nigel was like, remember yourself, Fitzherbert. Like he was, and Fred's like, no, let him talk. Like, he's not who we thought he was anymore. And I like that.
Watching Frederick's attitude change is amazing because one of the more subtle things in Before or After that I caught, and Chris was like, dude, you guys catch everything. That's amazing.
Yes, we do. We've had lots of practice.
Yeah, we're watching.
But specifically, when Eugene and Frederick have the talk in the hall, when Fred wants to go see Rapunzel and Eugene has discovered that she's missing and he's now looking for her. And Eugene brings up, hey, about that proposal that didn't exactly go the way I wanted to. And Frederick says, we'll talk about that later, son. But the son is really subtle.
Yep.
Really soft. And it's because Frederick acknowledges Eugene's role in his life, but he doesn't really accept it yet.
Yeah.
He has spent 18 years wanting his daughter back, and he gets her back, but she's got this guy attached to her.
And this guy who he's been chasing.
Yeah.
And this guy was like one of the kingdom's most wanted criminals.
Yeah.
And now he just has to let him live in his palace and steal his daughter's attention. And he doesn't get to have all the time with Rapunzel that he wants because she's so devoted to him. And that's very frustrating for him. But then you go back and you look at Queen for a Day, where he just thinks he's going to die. So he tells Eugene to take care of her.
Yeah.
Or, yeah. In Flynn, how they have that heart-to-heart in the jail cell.
That gets me every time. Every time.
Because that's actually the turning point in their relationship, is that up until then, Eugene still found Frederick intimidating. He was trying to be more chummy with him. You get the impression that he figured that if he acted chummier, then Frederick would actually like him more. And you can tell by offering him a high five, which Rapunzel had to tell him to stop doing. And it wasn't until Frederick realized how Eugene felt that the two of them bridged that gap.
Yeah.
And that was very, very cool. But that also goes to show that Eugene is actually the most communicative person in the entire series. Mr. I Don't Do backstory talks about his feelings more than anybody else.
He really does.
Well, he's got people that will listen to it now.
Exactly.
And that he wants them to know about it.
Such a huge relief for him to actually have all of these people actually wanting to hear what he thinks and feels, and it's so significant.
Yeah. And I really think that maybe it's the Flynn side of his personality that doesn't really do backstory. And because he's just coming out of that and into Eugene when he says that line in the movie.
Absolutely. And here's
So
is that at the end,
like he doesn't think Rapunzel will care necessarily about his backstory, and that's why he doesn't want to share it.
And in the movie itself, with excluding the epilogue, really we barely see Eugene at all, to the point where, like, he doesn't even know who Eugene is anymore.
Yeah.
Because he's been Flynn for so long, and he is convinced that everybody likes Flynn better anyway. So Eugene has been shoved into this little box in his head, and it's probably this teeny tiny voice that he ignores on a regular basis. But, like, so the series is also about him figuring out who Eugene is. So having him talking to Stallion and over being like, dude, that's not who I am. I'm Eugene. You have to stop calling me Flynn because I'm Eugene. It's just, I mean, it was like so awesome to hear him say that to Lance, who scoffed. But then Lance immediately started calling him Eugene, you know? So it's like, that just goes to show what good friends they are. And it's just, oh my gosh. Okay. So, all right. So we figured out, you know, we've talked a lot about the individual characters' developments through season 1. And we leave the end of that season with a lot of questions and very few answers. Because honestly, the end of the season, we know Rapunzel can control the rocks. We still don't know why they made her hair come back, or what all her hair can do, or the significance of her controlling the rocks is. But hey, at least now she's going to be free to explore the world. And then in the first episode in season 2, we find out she can't control the rocks anymore.
Also, can I just mention that when Adira pulls out the sword and she's going for the hair, I was like, oh my god.
I was like, wait, we're doing this now? I'm like, I'm not ready.
Yeah.
I was.
And then and then nothing happened, and I was like, okay.
I was like, oh, thank God.
We all had that theory at the end of the season.
Yeah, like
that's
so many
going to be what
people
cuts
were like,
the hair.
that sword is so going to be the hair cutting sword.
And they just shot it in the face. They were like, nope, that's not what's happening. And now I'm like, well, now I have no clue how the hair.
I have no idea what.
That was the one thing. The one thing I had an idea about, and no, it's gone.
It's gone. Yep.
We were all wrong.
It was so hard to like.
Cackling at us.
It was so hard to speculate.
You know, the crew was sitting in the studio laughing.
Yeah.
I'm
like, they were all wrong.
They think that sword's gonna cut the hair. I mean, here's the thing that I liked about the prologue for Beyond the Corona Walls is that I was wondering, if nothing can cut the rocks, then how did they make that sword?
Yeah.
And they answered that question, and I really appreciate that.
Yes.
You know, so like, yay! I'm all excited about that. Okay, so starting in to Beyond the Corona Walls, we can actually begin to review this episode.
That's how I feel about that episode.
Because we all know what we're thinking of, but before we get into that, let's actually talk about the prologue.
Yes.
And the significance of the fact that we know for a fact that Kieran was the knight to a different king before he lived in Corona.
Yep.
This is very significant. We do not know exactly how or why it is significant. We know that he knew Adira, that they worked very closely with one another, and oh my god, Adira, do I love her.
Oh, yes. She's the sass master. I love her.
She's so great.
So we now have this slight look into Kieran and possibly into Varian because of it. I mean, sure, we didn't see anything about Varian, but we now know that Kieran basically knew that if Varian left the rocks alone, that eventually they'd get to Rapunzel and then they would be nullified.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he knew this. And I want to be like, bro, tell people things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
like,
confide in your son.
Yeah.
My God. Then he'll quit being an idiot.
Oh my gosh, tell the king of your current
Also,
kingdom.
yes, that too.
If Frederick knew that, season 1 would have gone way different.
Yeah.
Like, because all Kieran told Frederick was these rocks are a menace.
Yeah.
But he didn't tell him what the dealio was, unless there is the possibility that Adira knows more than Kieran.
Yeah.
That is very true, because she's been out and about
she's been out and about, but there's also the possibility that Kieran moved to Corona to keep an eye on the sunrot flower.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
Oh yeah, because it's
So,
been 25 years.
Who knows?
Okay. So right now, as we are talking, I am coming up with a speculative theory here. So
theories on the fly.
We're talking about. Well, this is honestly when people send me asks and they ask me this question, and I start answering the question, and then I have a thought in the middle of the answer, and I'm like, oh, new theory. So we know now about this opal, which I think we're all assuming the opal is the moon drop. Because I know I'm assuming the opal is the moon drop.
I mean, it shows us in the thing that in the scroll that it's the moon and it's a drop.
Yeah.
So
right. So the opal is the moon drop.
Yes.
And so that does raise the question, because I know that somebody did pose the question of, so the sun drop and the moon drop fell at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes you wonder, did the spikes only start coming for the sun drop when the flower was picked? Because they clearly existing around this castle in the dark world, dark realm, dark kingdom, whatever it's called. They clearly existed around this castle for a long time, God only knows. And you have to wonder, if they fell at the same time, why is the moon drop only now becoming a problem?
Yeah,
true.
So we've got a lot of new questions, which is super exciting, because
we have no idea. I mean, we have no idea.
Yeah. This is out of the realm of speculation. So you have to wonder, so it feels like the spikes started coming for the flower after it was picked, but it took that long to get there.
Yeah.
So it's like, so the spikes don't travel, maybe they travel faster the closer they get to the source.
Maybe.
So it's
we also don't know how far away the Dark Kingdom is necessarily.
Exactly. We don't know how far away it is.
So it could take a full 19 years to get to Corona.
Yeah,
it could.
Depending on how fast they move.
It makes you wonder, is the Dark Kingdom part of the Seven Kingdoms? Or is it separate from the Seven Kingdoms?
Maybe it's a mysterious eighth kingdom that has been erased from everyone's memory to keep it secret.
Beauty and the Beast.
Yes.
Sounds like Vanishing Village to me, but...
But yeah, so I wonder if the rocks started coming for the sun drop after the flower was picked, and they kind of set up a beacon, I guess. It's sort of a boop, 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 boop. Yeah. And so they started coming out, and maybe the closer they got to Corona, the faster they were able to come to Corona, because everywhere they're traveling so far that we've seen, there's just spikes everywhere.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
So it's like, so clearly they did not sprout at the sundrop flower. They started at this kingdom, and they've been coming for Corona the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
the other thing is, in Before Ever After, Cassandra says that they sprouted up about a year ago. But they don't have much movement outside of that area. Mm-hmm. Like, there might be some past the walls or farther. No, it's already past the wall. Farther past that, but we don't see those. They start moving closer to Corona once Rapunzel gets her hair back. So maybe they moved to the sundrop space but couldn't find it, so they stopped.
That's a good point. They moved to the sundrop, and because when they got to the sundrop flower spot, her hair was already cut.
Yeah.
And
that's a good point.
Her hair, no, her hair was not already cut, because her hair was cut 6 months ago when they showed up a year ago. Yeah. So they got to the sundrop flowers location, and they're just kind of like,
where's she at?
There is nothing here. I don't know what to do. But it's like, it's because it got moved, Yep. And
it's in a physical person right now.
Well, first, the flower itself got uprooted and taken across the lake or bay or whatever that body of water is to the kingdom. So they probably had to kind of dither around and figure out where this magical source is. And then, as that happened, the flower died, and the magic got put into Rapunzel, who was then taken from that location and put somewhere else. So, like, their GPS is way off. They don't know where the heck Sundrop has gone. And so they kind of go dormant until she touches them.
Yeah.
And then that's when they're like, oh, great, now we're really close to it. We can just follow in that homing beacon now. And so they just, I mean, because you look at Varian's map, and they're literally making a beeline for the castle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everywhere else they're just kind of like all over the place, but it's not necessarily a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And once they reach Old Corona, it's just a straight line,
Mm-hmm.
straight up to the castle. So, I mean, between Varian's map and Frederick's with all the little flags in it, you can just see this, if they're just coming for her.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that new exciting mystery, and I'm very eager to see where that's going.
Mm-hmm.
But now we get to talk about the meat of the episode.
Oh. I can say I was, it was hard to speculate like what was going to happen, especially at the end. I'm like, God, they're going out and any number of things could happen. So the last thing I thought was that we were going to get smacked with new dream stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, first when we finally heard anything at all about season 2, it was, oh, by the way, Eugene's ex-girlfriend is going to be in season 2, and we're like, oh, ex-girlfriend, ooh.
Ooh.
Like, oh, by the way, she's in the first episode, and it's not girlfriend, it's ex-fiance. And
we're like, what?
Oh, that was such a weird day when we found out about the whole fiance thing.
Such a weird day. Oh,
I was like, I don't know how I feel about this.
Yep. I was like, well, I've blindly trusted Eugene Fitzherbert for 7 years, so I guess it had to end at some point.
But, I mean,
Just didn't think it would come so soon.
It was so funny because we got that news, and I was at work, and I am so glad that work has been slow lately because I was worthless the entire day.
I remember we were just
sitting
screaming
on Tumblr in my ass box, just answering question after question after question after question and throwing out all my theories and all this stuff. And I think that one of the funniest freaking things is that as a collective fandom, we predicted a lot of that episode.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They did. We did.
As a collective fandom, we figured out a lot of what was going to happen, and so a lot of it was not surprising, but that didn't make it any less good.
Nope.
It was,
yeah.
It was still so emotional, and hello, I was not expecting our angsty New Dream song.
Oh, man. I've been talking about getting that stupid song for so long, and I was not ready for it.
Nope, not at all.
Like, I just want this soulful, angsty duet between them, but not about them being broken up. What the hell is this?
Well, I remember I messaged Bex because I watched it like an hour before you did, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh my god. She's like, what? I'm like, you don't even know.
And then as soon as I was done watching it, or I hit as soon as I was done watching it, I was just like, Kelsey!
I'm like, I told you!
I'm sorry I had to go to sleep, you guys. I was so exhausted.
It's okay. We forgive you.
But then the next morning I watched it and I ended up on the floor.
I know, me too!
Head half in a laundry basket, just crying.
Well, my favorite part was, I'm already like, I'm like, this is really sad. She was calling after him and he left, and she's in the caravan and she's doing it and she's talking, and I was like, and part of me was like, oh wait. I was like, is this about to do it? And she started singing, and I was like, ah! I just ran. I ran and fell on the floor.
I love that picture that you posted of you just laying on the ground outside.
I was in the driveway at 4 a.m. I was like, I need some air.
This is the true Tangled fans laying on their on their
mind
driveway.
you, I was a little drunk, but I couldn't take it. I could not take it.
Fair, though.
I've wanted that for so long. I mean, I've told Beck so many times. I'm like, man, I want that angsty song. I don't know what they're singing about, but I want them to be sad. And I was like, oh, it's here. It's here right now. We're doing this now. I'm not ready.
Also, when it comes to the songs, can I just mention the fact that Eugene has had the one verse in Life After Happily Ever After, and he had a couple lines in Ready as They'll Ever Be, and now he's got 3 significant songs.
Singing about his girl.
Finally,
Yes.
Get his beautiful pipes. And we know that he's got a duet with Lance coming, and we know he has a solo coming.
Oh, I'm so excited.
With Eugene's song. Who was it who said it? I think it was Glenn Slater, possibly. I mean, I know one of the crew members said this, but he said, no. He said specifically, there's going to be even more songs in season 2.
Yes!
I mean, we already got 3.
Yeah, we've already got 3, and like 3 really good ones. Because you know what, the reprise is like as great as the non-reprise.
Oh, the lyrics are so good. I'm just like, they're singing about each other.
And this is what we've been wanting, is not only this like great new dream stuff, but like the actual communication. Yes. This is like all of Rapunzel not telling him how she feels for an entire season, and it all gets resolved at the same time. Yep. Yeah. And that was so satisfying. It's sort of like, oh my God, this is what I've been wanting, and it hasn't been brushed under the rug, and they're not just laughing it off and ignoring it. It's just, no, this is like, they know this is a significant thing. And like, that goes back to how she treated everything in season 1, how first she had to let Frederick know what was what before she could let Eugene know what was what. Yeah. You know, she had to reach that angry place. I was so sad in The Wrath of Ruthless Ruth when she was like, yeah, I'm going to tell my dad that how I need it to be. And then she just didn't do it. And I was like, oh my God, no,
come on.
Talk to people. But then when she straight up compared him to Gothel, I was like, yes, that's
I was like, doo-doo-doo-doo. I think one of my favorites is oh God, I was going somewhere with this and I can't. Oh, well, it was how this entire last season, we were always like, man, I really wish they would focus on New Dream more. And you know, the crew was just sitting back and they're like,
oh my God, yeah, you know. Yeah. Episode, the one that we just watched, has been written for like a year and a half.
Oh.
Like, they knew all this time we've been bitching about it. They knew it was coming. And they're like, right? I mean, it's like, Kate has a tendency to chat with me either the night, like the midnight after it airs, she'll wait up and wait for me to start posting my reactions, or she'll talk to me the next morning. Mm-hmm. In this case, it was the next morning, but she like just messaged me, so how'd you like it? And I'm like, oh my God, Kate! And she's like, yeah, I knew you'd like it.
And like, speaking of the whole New Dream stuff, I feel like every time I talk to Ricky, he's always like ends our conversations with, well, I'm off to write more New Dream stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, I love you.
I love Ricky so much. Oh my God. I mean, honestly, it has been plaguing my life that he said he was writing a scene and he was using The Glory of Love to inspire. And like, you listen to The Glory of Love, I grew up with that song. It's kind of hokey. It's like this 80s love ballad. It's kind of hokey. And now it just makes me cry into my soup because it's such it's like, no, this is a New Dream song and this will be so significant later. Oh my God, Ricky, what did you do? I mean, and so it's like, just, we know that one of the things that I was saying not long before the episode aired is that I really feel like season 2 is going to focus on Eugene and Rapunzel, both as individuals and as a couple, like really significantly in season 2. And I think that the outfit change is indicative of that, because having just them have new outfits, it makes everybody go, oh, look at them. Mm-hmm. Yep. And so it's like, it's a subtle psychological thing that draws the audience's attention to them. So I really think that they're going to be the primary focus. The fact that the first episode of the season focused A, on Eugene's past, and B, on their relationship, I think that sets the tone for the whole season.
Yes.
Like,
amen.
Straight up, I think that sets the tone for the whole season. And so,
please give us more Eugene background, please.
Please give us backstory.
Well, like I said, I'm like 99.8372% that we're getting literal backstory, because between knowing that Eugene and Lance have a duet coming and knowing that they hired these 2 boys for a project later on, and me saying, oh my gosh, is he going to be young Eugene? And then he liked that comment.
Yep. It's like, canon. It's confirmed.
Oh my gosh, I'm pretty dang sure that these 2 boys are going to be little Eugene and little Lance. Oh my God! So,
you realize we're all going to die when we see that, right?
Oh man.
We're going to be inconsolable for like 12 years.
It's going to be great. Another thing that I would like to point out is significant. Think about how Chris recently made that post where he was talking about the amount of money it takes to do a slight character redesign.
Yep.
Kieran was noticeably younger in that prologue. Yeah. which means that noticeably younger Kieran is going to show up again.
Yes.
Oh man.
So we're going to be getting more flashbacks to this whole kingdom thing, because if noticeably younger Kieran is going to show up, then I mean they didn't redesign him for no reason and waste all that money just for armor. You know?
Oh, definitely not.
Even though it looked great, go Kieran.
Honestly, you know what? You've got the people out there who are, I think it's Glow Amber, is doing like edits of like the main cast in that armor, and I'm like, dang!
Oh, those were so good.
Okay, Eugene. Okay.
I had that same thought.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. I'm taking this look, Eugene.
That's even better than Corona's armor. Ooh. You know?
Right?
So, I mean, but yeah, so it's like, so we've got all this possibility now with Eugene and Rapunzel and his backstory and like their relationship and what this new kingdom is going to mean. And like frickin' Adira, let's now come to Adira.
Yes.
Yes.
Because whereas when I met Cassandra, I was like, I like her, but I wouldn't want to hang out with her. I'm like, no, I want Adira around all the time.
Yep.
She is this trope of the quirky kung fu master mentor person, and I'm like, I want her around all the time. I love her so much. I love that her focus is on food. I love that she is just so calm all the time. Like when she was battling with Cassandra and Rapunzel, and she wasn't even fighting, she was just dodging everything. And then she caught the freaking frying pan without even looking. And she's
that was so good.
You are trying. Just like, she's so disappointed that, oh no, this isn't just like witty banter. This isn't your version of witty banter. You're actually trying to take me down.
You're like rooting for Adira. You're like, yes, get them. Yes, exactly. Put them in her place.
Give them hell. Give them hell, Adira. And so, yeah, and honestly, like, I love the red herring that they made her look so menacing in that last scene in the season finale. And then this is who she turns out to be.
Yes.
And it's like, because I was thinking, like, everybody's like, oh my gosh, so what if she's this? What if she's that? I'm like, honestly, I don't think she's a villain. I don't think she's a villain, because I think that's too obvious, you know?
Yeah.
It's like Tangled Before Ever After, we had the little clip of what we now know is Kieran parting the reeds to see the thing, and we're like, Kieran wasn't the villain. Kieran was far from the villain. Yep. So why would
it was his son. No one saw it coming. You're all like, oh, it's gonna be Kieran, and then it's like, no, actually, it's his cinnamon roll of a son.
Actually, we're gonna potentially kill him and make his son the villain instead. Yep. But it's
his adorable little baby boy with a raccoon is actually pure evil and attempts regicide.
But raccoon is still adorable. I mean,
oh yes, Rudiger will always be adorable.
Oh, I love Rudiger.
Is like the literal best. Okay,
trash panda.
It's like you get animal sidekicks. You get, Max, who's great, and you get Pascal, who's great, and Owl is interesting, and then you get Rudiger. I'm like, no, my heart belongs to Rudiger. I'm sorry.
Yep. It's because I relate to Rudiger the most. Small, chubby, happy.
Honestly, with Varian, and you see him going down this dark path, and Rudiger is like still there with him and still comforting him, but also still doing the right thing. Like, he's
I love when he pets his face.
I know.
Jail.
It's like, we're going to jail together. It'll be okay.
It's okay, Varian.
He's so sweet.
So you've got that final battle, and Rudiger's the one who frees Pascal and gives Pascal the message to free Frederick and Rapunzel so that they can, get this thing going. But then he still sticks with Varian regardless. And I just, that is the kind of loyalty I want. That is what I look for in an animal sidekick. Give me that loyalty.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but back on, Adira and where this is going and Kieran and all that kind of stuff, like, I can't wait to find out what she knows. Because like I was saying before, we don't know if she knows more than Kieran does or not, or we don't know if they were actually given separate tasks.
Yeah.
Like, maybe Kieran was given the task of go watch that sundrop flower, because for all we know, he moved to Corona well before the flower was picked, know? It was picked 19 years ago at this point, and that whole thing happened 25 years ago. So who knows? And then maybe Adira was given the task of follow the spikes and warn people and make sure nobody follows them back this way. And so, I mean, there's just all these questions now, and that is super duper exciting. and I am super duper looking forward to where that's going to take us.
Yeah.
So, side plot on episode 1 of season 2 is just Lance in general.
Oh, Lance.
Oh my god.
First of all, I am so happy that he's a main character now. Like, when he first showed up, I was like, he's gonna be a main character. Like, they have to make Eugene's best friend a main character, and it's gonna happen. I will admit, my original thought was that it was going to be a 5-person team of Eugene, Rapunzel, Cassandra, Lance, and Varian. Wrong about that. But
no, instead we get Hookfoot and Shorty. That works.
I'm good. I'm good. I think one of my favorite things, I remember when we were reading Vanishing Village, and there's a part right at the beginning, and it was like, there was no doubt Lance would come along. And you were like, there was a little doubt, just a little bit.
There's a little bit of doubt, but like, it was more here, but yeah. But, I mean, okay, speaking of Vanishing Village, I'd like to take it aside and point out that Shorty was the inside of the food cabin the entire book.
Yep.
He was.
He's not in the book. And then they find him stowed away in the first episode. So
he's just been eating all the food the whole time.
It's eating the food and sleeping, and that's all he's been doing. But like, so Lance, and first of all, the fact that he is a main character now, that makes my little Lance heart so happy. I love him so much, and I can't wait to see him further developed. And
maybe now that he's a main character, we'll finally get a plushie.
That would be great. Oh my gosh, that would be so great.
I just want a big Lance plushie to snuggle.
That would be amazing.
Yes. He'd be so comfy.
It would be. But comfier
than skinny stick Eugene. Stick burns.
Hey, he works, okay? You gotta take what you got.
That's true. That's true. I was having a bad time recently, and I napped with my Eugene plushie, and I slept like a freaking log.
You do?
Yeah. But, okay, so then, ever since the return of Strongbow, I've been like, dude, he's got arachnophobia. That has to come up again. Mm-hmm. That has to come up again. That has to come up again. And I swear to God, the first time I ever said that it has to come up again, I think Kate replied, lol.
She knew.
I was like, and even if she didn't say lol, I think she liked the post. And I'm like, anytime the crew likes my post, I'm like, why?
You're like, you have a reason for why you did this.
What about this post appealed to you that made you like it? So I've been like, all along, I've been like, that arachnophobia has to come out again. And that is why my roleplay blog for him is acutely arachnophobic, because I'm like, it has to come up again.
Yep.
And boy, ever did it come up again. And was that not the cutest panic attack you've ever seen, or what?
He was like, Eugene, it's a spider. Eugene.
Oh my God,
Eugene, it's a spider. It's a spider. Eugene, it's a spider. And then literally passing out.
I gotta give them a thumbs up for accurate portrayal of a panic attack.
Absolutely. And you know what? James had to have had the best time recording that episode.
Oh, like, I believe it.
Like, that was so phenomenal. Like, all that talking with his tongue swelling up and being loopy and all.
And you shaved your goatee.
I've always wanted a cat named Clovis. It's just like,
oh my God.
He's like, I'm glad we could have this talk.
Oh, Clovis, you shaved your goatee. It's just
Speaking of that talk, I would love to bring up the significance of Eugene telling Lance that he loves him.
Yes.
Because how often in the media do two straight guys say, one says it to another that they love each other?
And that there is absolutely no awkward backslap, no homo moment about it. It's just straight
no hesitation, nothing.
No hesitation, straight up, completely sincere. I need, whatever happens, I need you to know I love you. Just like, oh my gosh, that was so important. And that just really cements that these two have been brothers since they were little kids, you know? And it's like they often, we've seen them reminiscing about their childhood and what they were like together, what they were like together when they were kids. And it's just, that was such a significant moment. And I really applaud them for putting that in the script and for letting it go through and for making sure that happens. Because, dude, you can't just pass that by. That is such a unique, important moment in, children's media. I mean, platonic love is so important, and it is not portrayed often enough. I mean, it's not portrayed strongly and correctly often enough, and especially not between guys, you know?
Because guys apparently don't feel love for each other
I
unless
mean,
they're gay.
you get the moments where you have guys say to each other unexpectedly, "Hey, you're my best friend," and I'm like, "Oh, that's always cool and it's really important." But straight up, "I love you" is like, this goes to show that Eugene is still the most communicative character in this series.
Good job, Eugene. Great job with your feelings.
10 out of 10.
He's kept them all bottled up forever, so he's like, well, now I just gotta let them all out.
Yep.
And it's not like he uncorked the bottle. No, he just shattered that thing, and he's just letting them all fly. And it's just
tossed it against the wall. Here we go.
Feelings. Here's how I feel. So I mean, that's such a valid and impressive moment. Like I gasped out loud when that happened. I was just like, oh my god, that was so great, you know? And like, if I was at a commercial break, I would have screamed at Kelsey, you know? Like, watching it on Disney now, I wasn't getting commercial breaks.
Yeah, I know, they never do any.
And they did one right at the first commercial break you get on television. I got a commercial break on Disney Now, and then the whole rest of the episode there were none. And I'm like, this is great, but also I wish I could scream.
Yeah, so you're like, I have so many feelings.
There are things I need to talk about with other people.
That moment was like, and that I keep going back to that and getting all emotional because I'm just so impressed that they did that at all. And
I'm like, thank you, Disney, for letting this get through.
Yeah,
I know how picky you are, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's just, wow, that's so great. Yeah. So on the subject of Eugene has a fiance, I know that a lot of us were feeling kind of betrayed.
Yeah.
Because we had 7.5 years of very strong headcanons about Rapunzel being the first love of Eugene's life, and we're engaged? Excuse me? But I feel like we probably walked away from that feeling like she's still the first genuine love of his life.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You look at how Stallion acts, and you're like, I don't think he was ever really in love with her. And honestly, I don't think she was ever really in love with him. I think that she was in love with the idea of Flynn Rider.
Yeah.
Yep.
And she probably back in the day had him under her thumb, and she liked that a lot, and she wanted that to keep going. So I feel like it was this power trip that what she wanted to marry him again for, or what she was seeking to marry him in the first place, was all about was living up to this romantic idea of him she put in her own head. And, you know, because we all saw how very vehemently she failed to acknowledge who he is now and who he says he is now.
Yeah.
It's one thing to be all call you by the wrong name and get corrected. It's another thing to get corrected and say, no, you're not. You're who I say you are.
Yeah.
You know? So
it's like, no, that's his dead name. Don't use his dead name.
Yeah.
That's kind of a really significant way to put that, is referring to it as his dead name. It's like that just goes to show this lack of care and understanding and just abusiveness in this woman who, when she saw him for the first time in however long, wants to marry him but smacked him upside the head and she went
I was so mad. I went into protective mom mode. I was like, oh no, you didn't.
Yeah.
Don't touch his beautiful face.
Yeah, don't touch him.
No face.
But also, you got to look at the significance and the maturity of Eugene being like, oh, yeah, you want to break every bone in my body? I can see that. I kind of
He's like, I understand.
Yeah. But, I mean, also, I was watching that scene earlier today, and of course he was doing his usual trying to talk his way out of a situation. But he was also saying, oh, is that what happened? Because that's not how I remember it going down. And it makes me wonder how much of that is just him talking and how much of that is genuine. How much of it is him knowing that, no, that's not actually what happened. He didn't leave her at the altar. How much potential is there that he told her, you know what, I actually don't want to marry you. I'm sorry. And her saying, oh, no, we're getting married anyway. And her going on with the wedding and him not showing up because he already said we're not getting married, you know? So, I mean, she's, 6 6 pounds of crazy stuffed into a 3-pound sack. So that was a very, very, very sexy sack. I'll give it that. But...
Well, it's funny because I was so focused on that I was like, God, you know, how is Rapunzel going to react to her? How does she react to knowing he had a fiance? And I was so sidetracked from all the new dream that at the end of it, I was like, you know, we didn't really learn anything about Stallion, and I would like to know a little bit more. So I'm guessing she's going to be back at some point. But
well, one thing is that she said she'd be back.
Yeah.
And I kind of take the writers at their word, where anytime a character in the series expresses that they anticipate seeing another character in the series again, that we will see that character again.
Yeah.
Like Eugene saying that he's sure that Angry and Red will be back when they're ready. I believe we're going to see Angry and Red again.
Yes.
You know,
oh,
Stallion
saying,
you know what, I'm going to be back. This isn't the last you've seen of me. I believe she's going to be back. And on top of that, the Baron was built up so much that I absolutely believe they're going to find him an antidote, and he's not going to die of a spider bite, because like
that'd be
they
a
have
lame
hours.
way for him to go
like,
out.
I know.
I mean, that'd be so anticlimactic for him to like die immediately after we meet him after all this buildup.
It's like, oh, we know he's a murderer, and now he's dead. Great.
Yeah.
But also, you look at things like it takes hours for that venom to fully take effect.
Mm-hmm.
All they really need is to know where to get some. And it's not just like, oh, no, we have to go on this quest for anti-venom. They're like, no, we have to go to the apothecary, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, we are definitely going to see them again. I'm like really positive we're going to see them again.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Then maybe I'll get my backstory. I don't know. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That maybe in seeing them again, we will actually get more backstory about this whole relationship of theirs.
Because... I would love to see Rapunzel interact with her again. Just the whole her in that episode towards her was the funniest thing.
Oh my gosh,
swear.
yeah. Like
jealousy is so beautiful.
And the pettiness, and then the possessiveness, so good. And like, oh my gosh, that was a thing of beauty. Just like. And also, another thing I like about that specifically is that it really goes to show that Rapunzel is not all sunshine and roses all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That, like, right
especially
here,
when you mess with her man.
Yes.
The first time we saw any negativity in her was through Uncle Monty. And she was trying her hardest to get him to like her, to the point where she drew herself as the victim. You know, she had that adorable picture of herself throwing her head back and wailing while he's screaming at her. And it's such a good picture, but that goes to show that she thought of herself as the victim. Yeah. Whereas with Stallion, that was just straight up jealousy and possessiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, so you do have these emotions inside you. You don't understand everything all the time in an emotional capacity. And because it's like, she feels bad for Varian. She wants Varian to get help. She wants to have her friend back. But Stallion, she's just like, no, you're written off. I hate you.
Yeah.
You know?
I think my favorite part about that when her possessiveness is when Vex walks in. She's like, oh, are you looking for your boyfriend? She like swings up there and grabs her. And she's like, so help me. I'm like, oh my God, yes.
Yes.
And Rapunzel is about to punch a teenager. This is great.
And speaking of Vex, I actually hope we see her again, too. Yes. Because I really love having this true neutral character that she literally goes where the money is. Yep. Anybody who will pay her will have her allegiance so long as that particular task is still on the table.
Yep.
And I love that. I love that it goes to show that, you know, Rapunzel can't just automatically win people over by being her sweet self, because she and Monty... he's being stubborn, but they kind of have this agreement where they're like frenemies, you know? It's like they decide not to like each other, but they can absolutely work together and be civil with one another.
Yep.
But you get the impression with Vex where it's like, no, if somebody jingles a bigger money bag, I'm going over there.
Yep.
And I love that about her, because
priorities, man.
Well, it gives you like a look into the thieves' lives, and it makes you wonder, like, were Eugene and Lance like that at any point? You know, because I mean, we know that when we first meet Lance, he's still stealing shit, and he's still stealing shit for a while.
Yep.
Because first he literally pickpocketing the castle. He's just, you know, just burglarizing the castle as he's walking. And then if you want to go with production order, The next time we see him is Queen for a day, and he's stealing the king's stuff. Just like, I'm gonna take your shoes, I'm gonna take your hat, I'm just gonna like raid your closet and steal all the food in your kitchen. And then the next time we see him is in Pascal's story, and Pascal's made this great big dinner. He's like, I'm just gonna steal this dinner. And so it's like, it's not until Big Brothers that we start seeing less of the actual thievery, but he continues on the irresponsible path. Because they're like, Eugene is desperately trying to get him a job and get him to look responsible. He's like, oh, well, he's not around here, let's go get food, you know?
Yep.
And so it's like, he doesn't care, he doesn't want to have responsibilities, but he's starting to come into the, well, you can't steal all the time. I guess I got a job as a cook where there's food, you know? So, speaking of which, like, Snuggly Duckling lost their other cook, so we need a new cook now. I wonder if they know what to do it all. Like, so, I mean, but yeah, so it's like, I'm really looking forward into seeing more of the dark side of the Tangled universe now. Because if we are going to go back to where Eugene and Lance come from, we're going to be seeing the dark underbelly, and we're going to see the situations that had them, you know, instead of trying to get jobs out of the orphanage, becoming thieves instead. You know? I mean, and I currently believe that Lance convinced Eugene to be a thief. Just straight up. I think that was Lance.
Yeah, that seems fair.
Because between Lance having a lot of trouble giving it up and wanting to do things the easy way all the time, he's also not a sentimental person. And Eugene is a highly sentimental person. And so...
keeping the first thing he ever stole and all that.
Yeah, exactly. And Lance called it worthless, you know? Even though he and Eugene are emotionally brothers, he's like, why are you so sentimental? That thing is worthless. It's just a freaking comb. Yeah. And so it's like, so I like have this imaginary thing of like little baby Eugene sitting on a porch waiting for his parents, and little baby Lance being all like, they're not coming, just, you know, come with me, you know?
Yeah.
Let's go hang out, let's have some fun. Let's, you know, play.
And Eugene dreaming of being like actual Flynn Rider, who's doing good and going on adventures and, you know, stuff like that.
I like going back to like the movie, I like looking at that and dissecting it, because he became a thief in order to get the money, in order to be like Flynn Rider, because the Flanagan Rider already had the money to do everything, and so Eugene was just like, well, then I got to start with getting the money to do the thing.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I can totally see Lance being like, oh, well, I mean, you want to be this guy, well, we got to get money, and there's a really easy way to get money, you know? And so possibly actually playing on his sentimentality and his desire to be this fictional character to get him to do this thing, and then just losing his path along the way, because, I mean, how much is ever going to be enough, you know?
Yeah. I can't wait. I can't wait for the rest of the season. I have no, like, I really, even with one episode in, you still have no freaking clue.
Yeah.
What's gonna happen.
Absolutely. And that's what I like, is that I remember after Tangled Before Ever After, we're like, so now what? You know? So now we have this whole new door open up about these spikes and things, and now we've got the whole world plus spikes and things, plus Eugene's past. So it's just like, man, we've got just this everything is looking so amazing. And then we have a third season on top of that. It's like, I can't even begin to comprehend of where we're going. I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know.
And I'm so ready for it. Like, mess me up, Tangled. Mess me up. Like,
totally and completely. I just want to be destroyed. I want every headcanon I've had over the last 7 years to either come true or be just decimated.
Take it apart. Just like, hand us our headcanons on a platter, and you can either have the minced version or the beautifully prepared version, you know? I want everything I've ever thought about to be addressed. So
yes.
I mean, and that's one of the things about having it come so late after the movie came out, is that we had so long to think about it. And like, unlike so many other series, they didn't try to monopolize on it right away. They just, I mean, it's like, no, first they thought about doing a sequel movie and they just couldn't come up with anything. So they're like, okay, well, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And they just set it aside as the not going to happen pile. And then when Shane and Chris came up with this story much, much later, I mean, I don't know when exactly it got pitched, but you have to look at it this way. If the first episode started getting written a year and a half before we saw the first episode, it was actually like right after the short is when this got pitched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? So that's when they started coming up with all these great ideas.
Which is always great to think about, because that reminds me that I had started the Tangled Fandom Resurrection and they had probably already pitched the show.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
So, like,
awesome.
I didn't even know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was like, my fandom is dying and I need to do something. And someone was already doing something behind the scenes.
Oh
And I
man, the
didn't even
greatest
know,
thing.
and it was great. Because I just, you know, like I started it. I was like, come back, people. And people were like, okay. And then they're like, hey, P.S., we're making a TV show. And everyone was like, hi, we're back.
Hello, hello.
I'm like, okay.
I remember right
I'll
after
be back.
the series was announced, all of a sudden Tangled was like trending on Twitter and Facebook.
Oh, that
Yes.
was
And
so
it was like,
amazing.
oh my God, we're trending. This is like amazing.
Do you remember when
And
the
Whole
first
day,
teaser
I was
came
just
out?
in tears. Like, I was so happy because
Oh my God, yeah.
Tangled Fandom is like that's my everything.
Yep.
And
Oh yeah.
everybody was back,
absolutely.
and I was just like, oh my God, we're all here.
Yep.
We're one big happy family again. I'm so happy.
Yay.
See, and that makes me want to circle around and just talk about the Tangled fandom in general, because I've written about this so many times, and like I will keep writing about it as many times as I think about it. But this is honestly the best fandom I have ever been in.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, is there any Discord at all? Yes, now there is. There used to not be, like, it was just the movie, there wasn't really any discourse. It was just, you know, occasionally the conversation would come up of, I think Gothel actually did love Rapunzel, to be like, no, she didn't. She thought of her as a pet. And
But I don't feel like we were ever, like, you know, rude to each other. We
no.
just were like, well, actually,
I don't agree.
I
don't
think,
agree.
yeah.
Here's what Glenn Keane said, you know?
Yeah.
And, or you get the long hair versus short hair debates. Like, some people think her short haircut is ugly, and those of us that get kind of ruffled and be like, it's beautiful. She's beautiful.
Yeah.
But, I mean, but it was never really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of carried on into the series. And yeah, because I think a part of it has to do with the availability of social media now versus then, that it's a lot easier to have arguments and have very strong opinions, and then and then not hold your tongue if you see an opinion you don't like. But like, even when we have opinions that we don't agree with, generally speaking, the Tangled fandom as a whole just blocks people who say things that they don't like instead of starting a fight.
Yeah.
And I've always really liked that. I mean, there are some people in the Tangled fandom who, you know, we don't exactly see eye to eye. Like, there are some really strong Varian fans, and I'm not, you know, because I love Varian, but I'm not a really strong Varian fan. And
I
so
also love Varian.
a lot of what they post, I just, like, it doesn't jive with me, and that's fine. But I talk to them in Messenger all the time, and I'm like, no, I feel like we're friends, despite the fact that what we love about this show is not the same thing. And the whole fandom is like that. The whole fandom is just a whole bunch of very warm, welcoming people. And if there's parts we don't agree on, we just don't discuss that with each other. We just discuss about the parts we do agree on with each other. And and I really, really love it. And it's like, everybody is just, it's just, y'all listening to this, you're so great. Like, seriously, I don't get over it any single day. I will, like, suddenly look at all this stuff, and with the new episode out, the tags are, like, on Tumblr are constantly stuffed. And it's just, it makes me so happy, and people are so creative, and it's so great to see all of this artistic stuff, all of the writing, all of the theories, all of just the random crack that gets shoved out there because it's hysterically funny. And I mean, it's so, I really, really love this fandom. And I am very proud to be a significant member in the fandom, and to actually have people coming to me on a regular basis with their thoughts. And I know a lot of people will apologize for bothering me when they send me ask, and I'm like, guys, honestly, you're not bothering me. Like, seriously, I promise you're not. And if I don't...
Okay,
yeah.
I'm guilty. Sorry. No. I got over it, okay?
I'm bothering if Beck's not on Tumblr, so no one really gets to see it.
Yeah, she and I scream at each other in text way more often than on Tumblr. So,
I just, I know there's enough people wanting Beck's attention on Tumblr, so I keep it to text message.
I mean, it was really funny. Actually, last night, Ellie and I were having a conversation literally at midnight. She throws out this idea at me, and I respond to the idea, and I went to bed, and I literally got out of bed because I had a thought. And I texted her back because I had this thought, and I went back to bed, and the next morning I'm like, I have another thought, and I immediately texted her on that. And so it's like, so yeah, while she and I don't send each other asks, we do converse regarding this all the time, and Kelsey and I are constantly in Messenger talking about all this kind of stuff.
I like to send you joke asks. I'm like, I'm going to send you an ask.
I like the joke ask too, because then I know I can like respond with a joke. And but I know this person personally. Don't worry about it. I'm not actually that mean.
I think there was one I was like, hey, spoiler alert, they get married. And everyone was like, yeah.
Yeah?
Like, it's fine. It's a joke. It's a joke.
It's a joke, I know. Yeah, so. I mean, honestly, though, spoiler alert, they get married is something that, like, I cling to, because it's like...
Especially last weekend.
You look at this past episode, and it's just like... Oh my god, I cannot believe like how much I have to remind myself they get married, they get married. Exactly. This is all okay. They're gonna get married. It's fine.
When I was watching the episode the second time, I was like, thank God for Tangled Ever After, because we would all just like, if we think we're dead now, just imagine what we would be like if we didn't know they were endgame.
Oh my gosh.
And that everything would be okay.
And forgetting Tangled Ever After, the epilogue of the movie, and we're living happily ever after. Yeah. Yes, we are. So it's like, oh great, but like here's the thing with this episode is that we didn't know how long this awkwardness was going to last. Mm-hmm. So we're like, okay, so sure they're gonna get back together, but we don't know if things will still be awkward at the end of the episode, and if that's going to last for a while, and they have to figure it out later. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, oh, thank God, you know.
Yep. For my own sanity, thank God. Thank God I know.
Yes. For my own sanity, thank God I know. So, now that we have covered pretty much all the bases on Season 2, Episode 1, Beyond the Corona Walls, so we now have the vague description of the next couple of episodes. And I will say that the return of Quaid really reads like it's going to be a Western to me, which I think is really intriguing. Yeah. We have to call this lawman back in from retirement, y'all, in this broken downtown with no law in it. So, I mean, the fact that the Baron is already very mob boss, I mean, that's so the impression you get with him. He's the mob boss, and Stallion is the mob daughter, the mob boss's daughter. She's the mob princess. And so they are out of the picture right now, which means that crime in the town can kind of amp up because now they don't have to answer to the Baron.
Yeah.
So just straight up, it's a Western vibe. And I think that'll be fun. Like, one of the things I love about this series is the ability to explore unusual angles like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, it's like when I started watching Tangled. Actually, I should say when Tangled started getting into the thick of things, I didn't expect there to be a science fair episode. Just like, honestly though, if I go back to my original thoughts on what it would be like, a science fair episode was not out of the question. But by the time we were actually into the plot, I was like, what? A science fair? Huh, how about that?
All right, I'll go with it. That's fine.
Episode. Oh, I was just going to say the Law and Order episode too. Like,
oh my God, the Law and Order episode. Holy crap, that was so funny. That was so unexpected that they literally treated it like Law and Order and gave us times and goat. And...
Yeah.
clues. And
I was so happy they brought back Milton's name because
oh my gosh, yeah,
that was like a thing. I can't remember if it's also in concept art. It probably is, but it's from the video game.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, these guys do their freaking research, and
Yeah.
it shows in every little aspect, and it's so amazing.
Yes.
I was so happy about that because I was like, what? This is a callback to the video game, which I thought no one cared about because no one
Yeah.
ever talks about it.
Yeah,
Hey, it was fun.
Yeah.
It was a good game.
It was fun. The very first time I played it, I accidentally, I was trying to figure out how to move, and I'm like, why does it keep making a weird noise when I hit this one button? And I kept making them hold hands, and then I finally figured out how to move, and they were holding hands, and I was like, ah!
Best game ever.
Oh my god!
Oh man.
So yeah, so we have our what I anticipate being Western episode coming up, and that'll be fun. And then we have the Vigor the Visionary coming up, which I am so excited for.
Mm-hmm.
God.
Because of that deleted scene, I'm like, so how closely is the episode going to follow that deleted scene?
Mm-hmm.
I'm imagining Vigor actually predicting what they have to do with this whole rock thing and where this is all going, and before it completely comes together, they get pulled away from it. So it's going to be a tease for the fans.
Yes.
And we're going to see like a whole lot of the picture all at once, and then it's going to get taken from us. And I'm living. Like,
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Yeah. Let that be the case. I want that to happen. That would be amazing. And I am all about that.
Are you ready as you'll ever be?
I am ready as I'll ever be.
I really hope they keep the lady who's with him the same. So she's flirting with Eugene.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
If it's the one in tight pants, I do.
Okay.
Straight
Straight up though, after Rapunzel had to deal with Stallion, I want to see her react to that.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
She'll be like,
she's like,
lay off my man.
We're gonna go back to Corona if everybody's gonna be after you.
yeah.
She's like, I'm done. We're going home.
I've changed my mind. Let's get married so I can keep you away from other women.
People will see the ring on your finger and maybe they'll leave you alone.
She's like holding it up. She's like, hey, what's up?
And then we have the episode where first they get lost in this forest, which I'm really intrigued with, like magical forest. Oh boy, enchanted forest.
Oh yay.
I'm all over that. And then they get turned into birds, and I'm very curious and wary of them getting turned into birds.
Yeah.
Bird Gene, let's go.
It's kind of fun because it's a play on Rapunzel having a freedom bird, but like, why did they literally have to be birds?
She's gonna be so excited.
On this spectrum, Ellie and I are at one end of not in the mood, and Kelsey is on the other.
Love it.
Love that episode, and Ellie and I are like, no.
It's one giant joke, and it's great.
I didn't like how Eugene was portrayed because he's just me, and that made me really uncomfortable. Because I'm like, no, Eugene
like,
is the
I
way
feel
he is,
right now.
and he needs to be very different from me for me to continue loving him. I don't want him to be anxious and always apologizing and like, no, that's me. I don't need that.
A lot of my biggest problems with it is that as a role player, that was beautiful role play fodder. Like, okay, give me the crack role play. That was a lot of fun. But when it comes to actually being a plot in a getting more serious by the episode series, and if the whole point of that was to get that potion to Varian, they should have found another way, because that was a really long way to go for that. Like, that was really bad. And above and beyond the point being people acting out of character, there were people who were not on the potion who were acting out of character. For example, what the hell was up with Xavier? Like,
oh yeah,
who does he think he is, poisoning a member of the royal family because he decides he's going to teach her a lesson? Like,
that's a good way to get yourself thrown in prison.
Not like he won't be able to get out real fast.
Out pretty quick because it's Corona prison and the guards are imbeciles. But you know,
even
still,
but
prison.
they started out with the premise of, oh, these guys have been fighting like cats and dogs for weeks. I'm like, what? No. They've recently been through hell together. They're closer than ever. That makes no sense whatsoever. So your premise is already flawed. And so that's like my biggest issue with it. And then like I felt like if they were going to give them a different personality, it should have dealt with things that were potentially already inside them.
Yeah.
Like, what if Eugene's altered personality was more like desperately seeking approval all the time? Like, what if he spent the entire episode trying to get Frederick and Ariana to say that he was doing a good job and they liked him?
Oh my gosh.
Like,
that would have been rough.
What if Rapunzel had tapped into like this Gothel part of her because she was raised by that woman? It's in her somewhere, you know? Like, we actually see in the movie that she has the potential to be manipulative. And what if that was what was brought out in her, you know?
Oh, man.
And so it's like, so there was a potential...
It would have had a lot more feels.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There would have been a potential for a lot of depth in that episode, and instead it was this, like, ridiculousness. Now, I will say that the brief period of time when the entire banquet hall was full of people with opposite personalities was pretty funny. Because, I mean, looking at Ariana, who is like the most prestigious diplomat you have ever met, acting like this total slob. The captain of the guard being this giant child was hysterically funny.
That was amazing.
And I will admit, Rapunzel picking up a sword is like,
yes.
Ooh, so hot. I was like, oh my god, how is Eugene not just like dead at this moment? From like how amazing she's
out of the hall. That's the only reason he wasn't dead. I mean, and I have to admit that once he was back to himself, using the line of, if you just look beyond these doors, you will find exactly what you're looking for. It's just like this 100% vague promise that gets everybody out of the room. So, I mean, it's not like it didn't have its moments. I just felt like the overall way it was handled was like, that could have been so much better than it was, you know? So I was disappointed in that episode. And at that point, all of a sudden, Rapunzel's Enemy wasn't my least favorite episode anymore.
And then I had a new top 5.
But then, so looking at these birds, I'm wary. I'm hoping it's not another episode that makes me go, really, guys? Are you going to have one of these every season? At least we're getting this one out of the way early on. You know?
I'd be fine with one a season. It's better to just have one instead of multiple.
That's true.
I mean,
if you gotta do it, then give me just one a season.
I feel like even like Avatar: The Last Airbender had episodes like that.
Oh yeah, it had Avatar: The Last Airbender had the Great Divide, which was like pointless and stupid.
Yes.
Like that's like literally.
And that's why they skip over it in the episode near the end.
Exactly. Like they acknowledge that was a pointless episode. It's the only one that you can literally pull out of the series because it has like no place in canon. It's like, no, this is literally filler. This could go anywhere. Yeah. But no, so it's like, so I'm wary of them being turned into birds for that reason. I'm assuming that's the Freebird episode.
Yeah.
So I'm wary of them being turned into birds for that reason. And but it also has like, there is potential. Like, can you imagine how excited Rapunzel would be to find out she can literally fly?
Oh my gosh, she'd be so cute.
She's gonna love that.
And I don't know if they're planning on making up birds for all of them, or if they're going to like make them be actual birds that exist in reality. But like, I can see them poking a lot of fun at Eugene and Lance. And oh my God, Shorty, what kind of bird is Shorty going?
A dodo.
Oh my God.
Like, I mean,
Did you say a dodo?
Yeah.
Oh, it's perfect.
I'm like, Hookfoot's gonna be one of them city pigeons with a leg. and like Cassandra's gonna be an owl, and like Rapunzel's gonna be a Rapunzel freedom bird.
Yes.
But then we're wondering, what is Eugene and Lance gonna be? Is Lance just gonna be like a chicken? You know? Is Eugene gonna be hoping to be an eagle, and he ends up being like a hummingbird? You know? So like,
so cute.
Yeah. Like, so it has potential.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I'm still kind of scared of that episode. The premise makes me bite my nails.
Yep.
And we've got characters that they are being so vague about, like we don't even know the name of the character Kathy Jamie is going to be voicing.
Mm-hmm.
And we have this mysterious Serafina who is described as being breathtakingly beautiful, which makes me not trust her.
I hope it's not another X. I don't know if I can take another X.
Oh my God, you're right.
Honestly, I feel like she's going to be a magical creature. Like some sort of a fairy enchantress, something or another. That magic is going to be what makes her so beautiful. What kind of bird would Adira be? Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
I don't even know.
See, so there is potential. Or is Adira going to be one of those characters who doesn't really hang out with the party all the time, and she's going to be in and out of episodes? Like, we're not going to see her all the time. She's going to be like Lance was originally, you know?
Yeah.
Or she'll pop up at the end of a lot of episodes or something. So, yeah, the fact that she's not traveling with the party leads me to believe that we're not going to see her all the time.
Yeah, but she's in the journals, so I feel like she's going to have a significance, and she's going to be there.
Absolutely. Like, I see Adira becoming, like, a fighting mentor, especially to Cassandra. Like, I cannot see Cass letting enough time go by without being like, you have to teach me how to do all this stuff you do. Like, you're amazing, and I thought I was good, and you were, like, kicking my ass. So, I anticipate this really kind of cool mentorship, and Cassandra with Kung Fu was like, yes, please. You know?
Yes.
So, oh my God, then she could say the, like, I know Kung Fu line that's from Chuck. That would be
oh my gosh.
Guys, I know Kung
Fu.
Oh my gosh.
That would be amazing, and that would be another amazing. Considering they actually didn't really do any Chuck jokes in that episode.
Know.
Yes,
I was kind of sad. I was like, come
on. The only Chuck joke was the existence of his ex as voiced by Yvonne. You know,
well, my mom actually goes. She goes, they shouldn't name the episode like they named the Chuck episodes, like Eugene versus, and then whatever it is. I was like, that's such a good idea.
That is such a good idea. Eugene versus the ex-fiance, you know?
Yes.
Hello, crew. We have some ideas for you.
We have some retroactive ideas for you. Maybe when Stallion comes back, they'll do it.
Maybe. That would be awesome.
So, like, yeah. So if we're getting a return from her, then maybe we're not. All hope is not lost for a great Chuck reference.
Yes. Something, anything.
How about if we have another "Don't Freak Out" line in that episode?
Yes.
That would be awesome.
So, that would be amazing.
And Timothy Dalton is also playing Demantis, and I don't know if he exists in the timeline, but I would love for him to because he's also in Chuck.
Right.
So that would be fun.
One big Chuck reunion.
Demantis being in the series, I feel is significant because we can't know if he's going to be in flashbacks or if he's going to be in present day. And if he's in present day, that begs the question, has he somehow figured out a way to replicate the effects of the Sundrop flower?
Yeah.
Is he keeping himself alive with alchemy mixed with magic?
Mm-hmm.
And is that potentially the way to save Kieran?
Mm-hmm.
Another thought I've had is, what if Demantis is trapped in Amber and they figure out how to free him, and that's how they figure out how to free Kieran later on.
Oh my god,
that'd be fun.
So
and then they could go back and get that dinosaur too. And then they could have a pet dinosaur.
Yes.
Yay! A puzzle and a pet dinosaur.
Well,
hey, didn't Tom Caulfield at one point draw like a T-Rex, a Maximus, and something like that?
I don't know.
I want to say he had a crack drawing like that.
There's a T-shirt from a very long time ago that I saw that was Eugene sitting on the back of a T-Rex, and the T-Rex had a laser. And I don't know why it's perfect for me. It's amazing.
Oh, man.
But yeah, so we have so much potential. We have like this list of characters and voice actors who we know are going to be in it. But think about season 1, all the characters who showed up that we didn't know were going to be in it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like a lot of those we found out when we found out the description of the episode title, that,
Yeah.
oh, by the way, this actor is going to be the guest star of this episode.
Mhm.
So, I mean, so we've got all this potential, and I'm like super duper excited to see where this is going.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I'm really curious about Goodberry because I'm like,
yeah.
what do you mean by host? Do you mean
Yeah.
like game show host, or are we talking like Oron High School host club?
No, check this out. I actually have a thought about that. Is that when you watch that really brief, like one of the trailers we got for season 2 in general, you had that couple, and like she had a big old wig on, and he looked like a total poof, and that might be Goodberry.
Oh, okay.
So there's a potential there too. So so it's like, so we've got like, that's one thing I love about vague descriptions, is that we don't actually know what's coming, and we can throw all these theories out, and we're just like,
and be totally wrong about it all. Like,
we have to throw all these theories out, and then later on we're gonna have to throw them out because they were wrong. So yeah, so it's just so like, here's to the new season. This is like amazing.
Bring it on, Tangled. Bring it on.
We've had to upgrade our dumpster, or our trash can, to a dumpster. Thrown out Tangled theories.
Right. Oh, and I wanted to bring up, specifically backtracking to this episode in particular, I want to bring up that it's written by Jace Ritchie and directed by Joe O, because these two people are like so tops. Like, Jace is the head writer, and so he is usually in charge of the tentpole episodes, the really significant tentpole things that happen. He takes care of those. And Joe is such a good director.
He's amazing.
He is.
He's amazing. He directed Queen for a Day, if that gives you any example of what a good director is. I mean, and like, so like, these two guys, they're fantastic. I can't wait to see, like, we have some powerhouse people working on this stuff. Whenever Ricky and Tom are the lead writer and director, I'm just like, this is going to be a really cool episode. Because, like, The Quest for Varian is one of my favorites, and that's a Ricky and Tom production. So yeah. And
they're a power team.
Yes. And so knowing we've got more of that amazingness coming our way is just like, yes. So, I think that this probably sums up our first ever podcast.
Yes.
So, guys, thank you for listening. This has been Tangled Talk with Team Awesome. This is episode 1, starting at season 2, episode 1. And hopefully we'll be able to get back to you next week on the return of Quaid. I hope you enjoyed listening.
Bye,
See
everybody.
ya.